everybody, what's up? It's your girl Merle, and today I have my very dear friend Justin. We have a guest on the channel.
Hello!
Who's not Aria. I'm so happy he's here. Justin has a sick mind like I do, where we both like spooky things.
Yes, 100%.
I think it'd be more fun to tell a story to someone.
And I'm a great listener.
Great listener. Great reactor. I'm trying this new thing. We're gonna go state by state, and I'm going to go to each state, and I'm gonna pick an iconic dish, and I'm gonna talk about an iconic case. Since you're here in LA, we're gonna do California. We're gonna start with California. Today's topic is the one and only.
I don't actually know.
We're gonna be talking about Elizabeth Holmes.
Oh, I know who she is.
Do you know a lot about her?
I know that her voice is deeper than mine.
Yes, it is!
And she loves Steve Jobs.
We're gonna be talking about Elizabeth Holmes, and then the iconic dish, which maybe this is an insult to LA, but I feel like In-N-Out Burger. Like In-N-Out Burger is like an LA thing. So we're gonna make a vegan In-N-Out.
Does In-N-Out have a vegan burger?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. If you get mad because I said In-N-Out Burger is the iconic dish that I chose, just don't get mad. Or you can just get mad and just make sure you tell me all about it.
At her, not me.
Oh, yeah.
Innocent old me.
Hi, super quick thing. So I was nominated for Best Vegan YouTuber by Veg News, and I just want to say a big thank you to all of you who have gotten me even close to this point. If you want to vote for me, there's a link in my description. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right, so without further ado, let's get into this situation. We're gonna start off by caramelizing onions. So Elizabeth Holmes is all over the news right now.
She is.
Everywhere.
I'm aware.
Actually, I was gonna do this before I realized she was going to trial. So it's just good timing, actually. If you don't know who Elizabeth Holmes is, she is the founder and CEO of a large startup tech company called Theranos. So basically the whole thing behind Theranos was that they were trying to omit the need to go and get your blood drawn the long, old-fashioned way. Intravenous?
Sounds right to me.
Venipuncture. Maybe.
Sure.
Not the needle, just a prick.
Is this gonna make your eyes water?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
Elizabeth Holmes went to Stanford University. People said that she had like this drive to be a great inventor from like the age of like 6. You will soon see that Elizabeth Holmes was is a very brilliant person, but is also a very good storyteller. There are layers to the story, just like an onion. Elizabeth Holmes was considered to be like the next Steve Jobs. People really believed that this woman was a visionary. This story, you'd think, should be a story of celebration. This is right up my alley, like a woman, CEO, like making her way in the world. Oh my God, my eyes are watering so much. How are your eyes not watering?
Well, because I'm not still going and you are.
We're gonna put the onions with a little bit of oil in a pan over a medium-low heat. And if you want, you can add a little bit of sugar. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, and then I'll probably add some water throughout just to help to distribute the caramelization. Those are gonna cook down for like anywhere between 30 or 40 minutes. You know, it was looking very promising to many, many women around the world to see a woman in a high position as a CEO and founder of a major startup. Unfortunately, that's not the tale I'm telling you today. I'm not telling you a beautiful tale about a woman who rose above the male-infested waters of Silicon Valley. I'm telling you the story about a woman who rose above the male-infested Silicon Valley and then ended up lying to so many people.
You hate to see it.
You hate to see it. I was rooting for her. I wanted this to be real. But then she turned out to be a scammer. A scammer, Justin. Let's start at the beginning, shall we?
A very good place to start.
It usually is. In school, they said she was a great student. Teachers said they trusted her. They would trust her with their own car keys. She was like a stand-up student. People said she was nice. She tells this very harrowing story about her uncle and how she was really close with him. And then he was diagnosed surprisingly with skin cancer, which like went rapidly to his brain, and he died prematurely. She was like heartbroken about her uncle, and she's like, I need to do something about this. I need to find a way that we can like test blood and like find out if people have diseases so we can catch them early on.
And really, truly, an admirable goal.
I don't know her, but like...
You don't?
No, surprise! The whole fake it till you make it thing is not anything new in Silicon Valley. Basically, launching a startup, you have to believe in the product before it exists. Elizabeth was really good at bringing people in to give her money.
I wish I were that convincing.
So she gets into Stanford University, and she's like, right off the bat, freshman year, she's coming in hot. She's like, I got this idea for blood. She goes up to this woman named Phyllis Gardner, who is an actual brilliant scientist. And she came to Phyllis Gardner with this plan to create a patch that could simultaneously sample blood and deliver antibiotics to it.
Genius.
Efficient, one might say. Except Phyllis said, hell no. It's not realistic, essentially. So then, Channing Robertson, who's the head of the science department, tenured position, and he actually leaves Stanford University to work for this 19-year-old.
Insane.
So he leaves, and like that alone is kind of like very symbolic to like what her strategy was all along. She'd find someone in a very high position of power and influence, and then she would use that name to bring in investors. By the end of this year, she was able to raise over $6.9 million. Can you imagine?
I am so mad.
March 2004, Elizabeth drops out of Stanford to pursue Theranos full-time. Theranos was valued at $30 million. By the end of the year after she dropped out, the power of persuasion required to raise $6.9 million and to have a company, when you're 19 years old, valued at $30 million is insane.
So, like, she didn't finish her classes. She probably still has, like, basic chemistry.
He doesn't have a medical background.
Oy, ay, ay.
The crazy thing is she raised these hundreds of millions of dollars without showing like any of the investors how the device works.
Oh my God.
So the device was called the Edison.
After Thomas.
Yes, after
My
Thomas.
dear friend Tommy.
Because there's like this famous quote, you try something 10,000 times, you can fail.
It took him 10,000 tries to, like, make a light bulb or something like that. And I didn't fail 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Oh.
I bet he said it more eloquently than I did.
I think that was exactly word for word. People are hearing what she's doing. They're like, holy shit, this is a dropout from Stanford. She sounds like Steve Jobs. He's dropped out of college too. Hey, look, they both wear black turtlenecks. I wonder if I should put my money in this. Some of the early investors include the head of software at Apple, Avi Tavanian, that's what I'm gonna say. The founder of Oracle, Larry Ellison, George Schultz, who's like a huge investor. So basically she gets all these dudes to like come and invest in the Edison and in Theranos, which that in itself, like honestly is something that I can't even imagine. Like I don't even know how you get in those rooms.
You just walk on in.
The confidence. She becomes tight with George Schultz, who's a former Secretary of State. Tight to the point where she's going to Thanksgiving, dinners at their place, and George Schultz has a grandson named Tyler Schultz, and he was around Elizabeth's age. George is like, oh, Tyler, you gotta meet this Elizabeth broad. She's great. She's coming up with an incredible new invention, and you should totally work for her, because I have a lot of power, and I can make that happen for you. Now, this is important. Remember Tyler Schultz. He comes in later. Tyler Schultz is like blown away. He's like, oh, Elizabeth is sick. He's like, Theranos sounds amazing. I definitely want to work for her. And he does.
How long does it normally take to caramelize onions?
It takes a while. So between the years of 2004 when she drops out to 2007, Elizabeth is schmoozing, she's bumping elbows, she's like, this is my idea, give me your money. This is my idea, give me your money. And it's working, and she's getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. She then says publicly that the US military was using the device for 2 years, which is a bold claim, saying that they're actually using it on soldiers in the field. This is a complete lie. She's lying about this. She's like, but of course, people hear that the army's using it. They're like, oh, then it's obviously legit. The Pentagon, for the record, wanted to test Elizabeth's devices, but she would not allow this to happen.
The Pentagon wanted to test the technology that she said they were already using.
And she said no. Ken Auletta, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Sorry if it's not. It's Auletta. Here, I'll show you his name.
Kenny.
Ken! He was pressing Theranos and Elizabeth for like how this device actually worked. And he's like, okay, sounds great, but like, what? He's seeing all this buzz, right? He's like, oh, okay, the US military, holy shit, George Shultz, all these people, right? He's like, wow, this woman is going fast. Finally, he convinces Elizabeth to let him come visit Theranos to see the machines at work. She was like, fine. I'll let you come. You can't publish any details about it. Like your whole point as a reporter is to be able to tell people like how things work, but not this time. He has a quote, and this is also important because this is kind of this beginning of a snowball effect of what will later catch up with Elizabeth Holmes. There was little to no explanation about how the process within the Edison actually works. He was allowed to see the machine, but he wasn't allowed to see the inside of the machine. And the Edison it looks like a computer, like a PC.
Yeah.
This was his quote in his New Yorker article. What I like about Ken is that he didn't like sugarcoat it. This is how Elizabeth Holmes described it to him. She says, a chemistry is performed so that a chemical reaction occurs and generates a signal from the chemical interaction with the sample, which is translated into a result, which is then reviewed by certified laboratory personnel.
I think I wrote that as an answer on my science final in like 4th grade.
The reporter did say that she gave a comically vague description. So in 2007, Theranos is valued at an estimated $197 million. In 2009, another fun character comes into the picture, Ramesh Balwani, but everyone calls him Sunny.
Because of his cheery disposition?
Quite the opposite, actually. They had a nickname for him, which was the Enforcer. He didn't seem to care whether or not people were happy. He didn't seem to care whether or not the machines actually worked, which they didn't. But people were coming to them with serious concerns, and Elizabeth, and they would just be like, oh, you're saying these machines don't work? You're saying you don't believe in the company? Sign this NDA and then pack your bags. You have to leave. They would not accept
terrifying.
They would not accept no for an answer. A lot of people also said that the level of paranoid and secretive that they were at Theranos was unlike anywhere else they had ever seen. Elizabeth Holmes started going everywhere with a swarm of bodyguards around her, which also was kind of, they believe, part of how she wanted to present herself as a VIP. Needless to say, they told their employees they weren't allowed to speak to their families about their jobs. They found out that they were being watched at all times. Emails were being read. If people were found to be talking trash about the company or anything like that, they were not killed. It just made it look like they were murdered. So basically, it wasn't a fun place to be.
Doesn't sound like it.
Apparently, this guy, Sunny, was a successful investor late in the 90s, right? He was 49 years old, and Elizabeth Holmes was 30 years old. What later came out was that they were dating. They did not disclose this to any of the investors.
Did they disclose it to HR, though? That's really important.
They didn't disclose it to anyone. But Sunny was apparently very deferential to Elizabeth. Even though she was so much younger than him, this is a common thing too. Everybody was she knows what the hell she's talking about. She is a visionary. We must follow her lead. 2010, the year we both graduated high school.
Oh my God.
Elizabeth Holmes didn't give a shit about that. In 2010, Theranos is valued at $1 billion.
Girl.
What? Listen, people have gone to space, right? We invented the iPhone, but you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make a chemistry occur inside a box.
So chemistry is occurring, $1 billion valuation. Enter. Is somebody entering?
Yes, someone is
Yes!
entering. Former U.S. Secretary of State George Shultz joins Theranos' board, and in the years that would follow, other very important political and business leaders like General James Mattis, Henry Kissinger, David Boies, Betsy DeVos, Kraft, who owns the Patriots, Rupert Murdoch, and former Wells Fargo Chief Executive Richard Kovacevic, hey?
Ceviche.
Were among the list of investors in Theranos.
What? This just sounds like people are throwing money at her as a game.
The big client that basically Sunny and Elizabeth were really trying to court was Walgreens. Walgreens had never actually looked within the Edison to see how it had worked. Surprise, surprise. And yet, they were very, very, very close to sealing a deal with Walgreens.
Wait, very serious question. Did she have technology patent?
She had many patents done with her name on them, but other people were completing the work. That's why she had all these important scientists and researchers working for her, because they were developing these patents that she was overseeing, but she wasn't doing any of the research or the work to actually create these patents. They're getting there, they're caramelizing. What's crazy is that while they're courting Walgreens, the Edison is failing. And what's worse is that the developers on the Edison machine were asking Elizabeth, can we make it bigger? Can we just try to change the structure? And she was like, no. It needs to be this size, it needs to look like this, and it needs to do what I say. Tyler Schultz, remember him? George Schultz's grandson. He was basically saying, when you peeled back the curtain to look at what was going on with the Edison, it was a lot of different blood types and blood samples being used, gunking up the machines, potentially a really dangerous hepatitis fucking zone. They didn't have a way to clean these machines. Think about it, congealed blood everywhere. It wasn't cute. And that's why they weren't showing this to the investors. One of the main problems with the Edison, it was too small. The box itself was too small to possibly try to process 250 different kinds of blood tests off of 1 or 2 drops of blood.
How big was it, Okay.
Yeah. When they were having executives from Walgreens and other big companies come in to see the machine, because people want to see the product before they put the money down, right?
Right.
What they would do is they would bring in the Edison machine, they would perform the little prick on the executives, and they would insert it into the machine, and then they'd be like, all right, we gotta wait for the results to process, so just give us an hour, let's go grab lunch. And they'd take the clients to a really nice lunch, get them all boozed up.
I know where you're going with this,
and then a lab technician would come in, take the samples, and perform a manual test on them in the in-house lab.
Oh my God. I was gonna say, is that legal, but well.
No. And you know what's even crazier? is that Theranos was using machines and like equipment from their competitors to perform these lab tests. So they're basically like, oh, please, like intravenous like tests are so yesterday, as they're using the exact same technology that their competitors use to perform their own blood tests to raise money for their product that doesn't work. Many people that worked there basically said that Sunny and Elizabeth were more interested in just selling the product than actually making the product work. People are going to be using it and making serious life decisions based off their results.
Literally, were they gonna have a lab technician run in every 5 minutes and take these vials back to, get out of here.
Something like that.
No, stop it.
So Ian Gibbons was like one of the lead people who was actually creating these patents that Elizabeth was assigning her fucking name to. He's doing the work. W-E-R-K. Ian was making it very clear to Elizabeth and to other people that the machine was just never gonna work. Like, the box was too small, the physics of it just didn't make any sense. There's no chance. And Elizabeth was like, no.
The gumption, the gall.
Truly. The audacity. She removed his office. He's literally punished and humiliated at work. She tells him he can't work from the office anymore. She forces him to work from home because they still need him because they don't know what the fuck is like to do.
Please work from home when this machine is in the office.
Yes. Ian fell into a very deep depression and started drinking heavily. Very sadly, after like years and years of being completely humiliated and ignored and punished for saying the right thing and doing the right thing and standing up for what's right, Ian died by suicide. He had worked there for 10 years and they never reached out to his wife. The only thing they said to her was that like they needed his equipment, they needed his laptop, like, you know, like they needed his info and like wanted her to sign something. And she refused. She's like, no, I'm not gonna sign that.
Good for her.
I think it's an important part of the story because it's important to understand like the level of stress that workers were feeling at this company. And also to understand that they didn't take any responsibility for someone who worked with them for so long and put so much time and energy into making this happen. You know, they couldn't have done what they did without this person. In September of 2013, Holmes finally opens up that Theranos and Walgreens are gonna be partnered. That's a big deal for Theranos. Theranos is like, at this point, pretty desperate for money because they're just pouring money into trying to develop these fucking blood tests because it's just not working. They're bleeding money into incredible marketing. They're getting people's attention, but they don't have anything to show for it. They had one of their ads directed by Errol Morris. It's like asking Steven Spielberg to direct a commercial for your product. Theranos courts the media. They're like, bring in the hounds. Like, we want everybody talking about the fact that we are in Walgreens now. And they open up their first Theranos center in a Walgreens in Arizona.
Okay.
So that anyone in Arizona can just walk in and use Theranos technology. It would be great news if it worked. And now they have a bunch of people coming in to use the machines. So do you know what they do? Literally taking these samples, driving them all the way up to Palo Alto, right? Where they like hastily put together a lab. Because now they need a huge lab, test all these like hundreds of fucking blood tests that are coming in per week. And they don't have a proper way to transport these. They're not like regulating the temperature. These blood tests are like not being handled properly. Furthermore, they have the audacity to have these poor people in this makeshift lab in Palo Alto that they just set up at the last minute. They have them like testing this blood, right? And then giving faulty results back to people that they have to make life-altering decisions off of, you know?
Did the people doing the tests know that they weren't accurate?
Yes. They would retest some of the samples and they would come back faulty like something like 60% of the time. The test would come back faulty more often than not.
Oh my God.
You know what's crazy too is that as they are like, they're starting to lose lab workers. Like, you know, these lab technicians don't want to work here because it's bullshit. And the conditions aren't great and they're not being treated properly.
Yeah.
So like their lab technicians were getting younger and younger and younger and less experienced.
Oh my God.
They even said at one point they hired a dermatologist to work in one of the labs. Like a stretch. So they're not doing so hot is what I'm saying.
They are taking a bit to caramelize.
Elizabeth actually lobbied in Arizona to pass a law where patients didn't have to consult with their doctors on their blood test results.
Why?
Because she would be found out.
Oh,
So I can't prove that, that's why. All I know is that she lobbied for a law to be passed. As I'm sure you can guess, this doesn't bode well. Out of 8,200 Walgreens locations, Theranos only made it into 42.
Are they picking up the samples from all 42 of these and driving them to Palo Alto? I cannot. Oh no. Guys, drink every time I say, oh no. Oh yeah.
I will. 2014, Elizabeth Holmes is named the richest woman in America while this is all going on. At this point, Theranos is valued at $9 billion.
Like, what?
I feel like this story, if anything else, it just makes me really hyper aware of how money makes money. Basically, if you can convince a few people in high power with enough money, you can make anything happen, even if it doesn't work. Elizabeth Holmes herself owns 50% of Theranos, which puts her value at $4.5 billion. She was widely considered to be the youngest self-made female billionaire while this is all going down.
5-hour video of you caramelizing onions.
These fucking onions, man. They're wild. Let me introduce you to John Carey-Rue. He is a Wall Street Journal reporter, and he's tipped off from someone saying, hey, have you checked out this New Yorker article? Remember the other reporter that we talked about before?
Yeah.
And did you see the part where the reporter actually said that she vaguely described how these tests work?
I'm surprised this article didn't go viral.
Carey-Rue takes a look at the article. He's like, yeah, wait, that's crazy. So this company is valued at $9 billion, and like all of these huge names are attached to this, but nobody knows how it works. What's up with that? Fortunately for us, he decides to do a little digging. On top of that, a lab director from Theranos had recently left. Surprise, surprise. Carey-Rue reached out to this lab director and was like, all right, you gotta tell me the tea. Like, what's going on in there? In the meantime, Theranos is like gearing up to be found out. Theranos hired a lawyer that is the same lawyer that protected Harvey Weinstein. And honestly, this lawyer is so well known that he's kind of there like a guard dog. It's kind of like a scare tactic to keep like the news, the media, anyone from like kind of coming at them. So Carey-Rue, the reporter, goes to the Walgreens in Arizona, and he's like, well, I'm gonna try this thing out myself. And he's shocked when they use venipuncture. When Elizabeth was pressed about the fact they were using venipuncture, like needles, for these tests, she said, within a year, we're aiming for 99% of the tests to be able to be done through the finger prick. Why didn't you just wait? And the reason was because they didn't have enough money. They were running out of money. Unsurprisingly, people are pissed, and it like less and less and less tests are actually able to be used within the Edison at all.
Shocker.
None of these tests were FDA approved. The only one that was FDA approved.
What? How was she allowed to? What?
Well, that's why they weren't allowed to test on site, too. I mean, it wasn't just because the results didn't work. It was because they legally were not allowed. At the same time, lab workers were breaking down because they felt so guilty that they were, processing these faulty blood tests and handing the results back to people who now were not consulting with a doctor. So it was all crumbling at their feet. You know who comes through?
No, who comes through?
For Carey-Rue, Tyler Schultz, the grandson of George Schultz.
And Erica Chung, who was a former Theranos lab associate. She and Tyler together both went to speak to George Schultz.
Essentially, George Schultz at the time was kind of like, I'm sorry, but if you do this, like your entire life is gonna be ruined. You can't come out against Theranos. There's too many important people attached to this. Like, you just can't, kid. Tyler decides anyway that he's going to be a whistleblower. He agrees to meet with Carey-Rue, and he kind of just tells him everything. So now you have a Wall Street reporter who has access to all of this internal information that everyone else was too afraid to talk about, and it turns out that like Theranos comes for Tyler. His parents end up spending between $400,000 and $500,000 in legal fees. A few months later, the Wall Street Journal comes out with the article. They're basically like, Theranos is a sham. Elizabeth Holmes is a liar.
Who am I? When are these onions gonna caramelize?
Yeah, this is just an onion caramelizing video. Theranos comes out and calls the Wall Street Journal's claims factually and scientifically erroneous.
God, what delusional land does she live in? I would like to go.
January 2016, Walgreens finally pulls back. In March 2016, the CMS threatens to ban Elizabeth Holmes and Balwani, Sonny, from the laboratory business for 2 years. That's a checkmate.
Oh my God.
So in May 2016, Sonny steps down. In June 2016, Elizabeth Holmes' net worth is revised to $0. Naturally, in November, Walgreens sues Theranos. Shocker. In January 2017, there's a ton of layoffs done at Theranos. It's followed by a failed lab inspection. So they're just going down to hell in a fast car, In March of 2018, Elizabeth Holmes is charged with massive fraud.
You don't say.
I do say. Elizabeth finds a way to get herself on trial first. That is a huge detriment to Sonny.
Oh, right. She's gonna point the finger.
What she's alleging is that he abused her for 10 years and that she was like not in the right mindset to run the company. They said the jury viewed Holmes' testimony of abuse with cynicism, that it was a sympathy ploy. So the jurors did not buy that. She was seen at Burning Man in 2018.
Even the chair doesn't believe it. It squeaked.
You know, not that you're not allowed to do that, but you just lost hundreds of millions of dollars for all of these different companies, ruined people's lives.
Yeah, not a good look.
Not a good look. And so then it comes out at Burning Man that she's seen with this young guy. And he had worked at Theranos and he was fired. But I guess he doesn't care anymore.
What?
What's crazy is you know what happens right when she's going on trial? What happens right before she's going on trial? What's one thing you could do to help your case?
Get pregnant?
Yes.
Stop it. Get out of here.
Jurors found Holmes
Guilty.
guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud against investors and 3 charges of wire fraud. She denied the charges, which carry a maximum prison term of 20 years each.
What about Sonny? He hasn't gone yet.
And she just ripped that man's character to shreds. So
Tyler and Erica would even go on to testify against Theranos. A terrifying thing to do when you're dealing with a company with so much money and so many resources. John Carreyrou, Erica Chung, and Tyler Schultz are key figures in bringing down the titan that was Theranos.
and I'm gonna have you mix
Me?
together the animal style sauce.
Okay.
For this recipe, we're gonna be using a 1/4 cup of vegan mayonnaise, 2 tablespoons of ketchup, 1 tablespoon of sweet pickle relish, 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of distilled white vinegar. And then we just mix that all together. Apparently one of the secrets for the In-N-Out burger is that they spread a little bit of yellow mustard on the patty, and they just plop that right in the pan. I don't know if they do both sides, but I spread it on both sides because I like mustard, so why not? Then you can toss on a slice of vegan cheese. I'm using a vegan American cheese, and let that melt just a little bit. And of course, we're gonna wanna toast our buns. So for assembly, we're gonna spread some of the animal style sauce on the bun, and then we're gonna add some tomato, lettuce, our beautiful burger, and if you're like me and you forgot the caramelized onions, toss those in there as well. Thank you, you treasured human beings, for being here with this beautiful, beautiful union.
Yes! Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for watching this video.
Yes, yes! Join my Discord, like and subscribe, do all the things. You know what to do. You know what to do.
You do.
Okay, ciao for now.
Bye!
Ta-ta. Hope you didn't watch this, Elizabeth Holmes.